everybody, it's your old pal Tuna here and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be taking you through the process of creating my latest painting. Here she is. This is a kind of multimedia gouache illustration, specifically acrylic gouache on watercolor paper with a little bit of colored pencil and a 3D element. So this video is actually real time. I snipped it up and found the 10 best minutes and I'm going to tell you all about how I made this painting. I also have some other stuff on this channel, including some vlogs and some other painting videos, so when you're done here, be sure to check those out and don't leave without a like and, a subscribe if you think you want to see some more. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now here we are back at the beginning. As I mentioned, today I'm going to be working with acrylic gouache, which is a medium I've used in basically every video that still remains up on my channel. It's my current fave. I've talked about its properties and what I like about it so much in other videos, so I definitely would encourage you to go over and check those out if it intrigues you. But I'll get into the specifics of what I'm doing here. Also, my apologies, I'm recording this voiceover the next day after recording the clip that you just saw, and I have fallen ill, so my voice sounds a little different. The first thing that I do before I do any painting at all is create a digital sketch of the illustration. So using my iPad, I'll do a complete sketch which has all the loose line work and color assignments as well. And I have that up just off screen where you can't see it. And I'm using that to reference as I go along. As you can obviously tell, I had transferred the sketch onto this watercolor paper I'm using, but I put down like the first stroke of this murky green color and immediately realized that it had no transparency at all, and so I had drawn all the swirls for where I wanted the hair to be and then quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to see them at all. So thank goodness I had that sketch available to me. It is definitely something that I recommend you do if you are either fickle or otherwise really reliant on your base sketch to do your work. So this is a painting that I created on commission. I had one of my longtime followers reach out and basically say, hey, like, I want you to do a painting for me. Anything goes. I came up with this piece. This month, it's April of 2022, where I am. I don't know what it is where you are. But I have been all month working mostly with florals, and each month I choose a color palette and theme to guide my illustrations with. Now this is mostly based on the stuff that I do on Patreon, but I realized it's actually like a very fun challenge to have it worm its way into sort of anything that isn't a commission or otherwise other person directed project. So I did use that theme for this piece, as you saw at the beginning, showed you the final piece already, flowers, butterflies, grass, stuff like that. I had this idea in my mind to include a 3D butterfly in the painting, and I also wanted it to be centered around hair. And before I realized that the hair could kind of emulate like a grassy field, I wasn't really sure what direction to take the illustration in. But yeah, once I kind of came to that comparison conclusion, it informed basically the rest of the composition quite quickly. I had actually originally wanted to include a real dried, or I suppose taxidermied butterfly. I actually have a quite extensive collection of them that I purchased off of Facebook Marketplace. Someone was selling like a ton of them that they had bought from someone else, and I was like, yes, give them to me. And so I have a stash, but unfortunately the painting was a little bit too small to accommodate these full-size butterflies, so I went with the paper cut one. I still think it's a cool effect, and it inspires me to want to do more 3D stuff. I've been really trying to push my work in a new direction every single time that I do an illustration. So I actually work full-time as an illustrator. It is my job, which is great, and one of the things that I do the most is digital work. The majority of my self-directed work, the majority of my client work, my commissioned work, and my comics work is all done digitally. So during the course of a month, I really only get a chance to do like 1 to 2 gouache illustrations, and sometimes none at all. Because of that limited time, I always want to make the most of the illustrations that I'm doing, so you'll find me either experimenting with mediums or finding new ways to shake it up every single time I approach a new thing. So yeah, what I did for this one was approaching this 3D element, and I think it could be cool to look forward to doing more in the future. I have a Cricut cutting machine, which I did not use for this piece because I knew I was just like doing the one little butterfly and I could hand cut it myself. But the potential is there to take the Cricut and have it, like I kind of experimented with, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here because we're still painting, but you did see the final piece. I experimented with having some of the flowers in the hair be 3D kind of cutouts as well. And while I didn't dislike the effect, I did feel like it kind of drew the attention away from the butterfly, so I ended up vetoing it, but it sort of like left me with an idea of what I could do in the future. Now, as I mentioned, this month's theme is technically Secret Garden, and it devolved into me just drawing so many florals. Like, I have never explored florals before in my art, I think, ever. And this month was 90% flowers. And I keep joking, like, florals for spring, groundbreaking. But I think I'm the only person that thinks that's funny after the first time I said it. Anyway, I've also been trying to experiment more with video stuff. If you've made it this far in the video, I'm going to give you the secret hack that you definitely don't know about getting fresh views on social media, i.e. Instagram specifically, is you gotta make reels. And so over the course of my paintings that I've been working on this year, which again, it's April, so that means that there's like 4 of them. I think that's literally how many there are. I've been doing little reel videos. I cropped all the clips out of this super cut, but in some of the footage you can see me like awkwardly holding my phone, taking these little clips as I go. Highly recommend you get into doing that, even if you work in like digital media. If you have a screen tablet, or even if you don't have a screen tablet, like take screen recording and turn that into video content, because I am seeing growth on Instagram for the first time in over 3 years. Anyway, so I've been experimenting with that, and I also wanted to do this like long form video content. I really like that people enjoy reels, but I find that because you're reducing what is this real time is I think it was 3.5 hours, and that was like me missing a little bit of footage, but then also me just kind of like staring at it in some of the clips. So it's not like 3.5, 4 hours of actual painting, but that's the process. And mixing paint, God, it's like I'm cutting through the footage and I'm like, why is it taking me so long to mix this paint? Anyway, what was I saying? Right, so I wanted to make this real-time video just to give you guys a glimpse of like how my pace actually is when I'm painting. And I did cut out all of the time that I'm spending sitting and staring and otherwise not being super productive, but I like the authenticity that a long-form video has that a reel doesn't. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I enjoy the real content. I enjoy that people like and have the attention span for short videos, but I think like a lot of the people who consume my content, TM, are artists themselves who might be aspiring, who might have never tried a traditional medium before, and who might be intimidated by the perception that is kind of shown through these super clip type videos. I don't want people to feel intimidated by the medium, and so I want them to see that, you know, you just go slow and you're patient, and ultimately it pays off. And I work really fast, I would say, for a painter. Obviously, I'm working at a really small size. My style is pretty simple, and I'm not really striving for a super large amount of detail in what I do. So on average, my paintings take between 3 and 5 hours would be my guess, and that depends on a fair number of factors. This one, like I mentioned, was about 3.5 to 4, so somewhere in the middle of that. But anyway, hopefully this long form paired with the short form creates a beautiful blend of content types to not only give you the rush of a reel, but the behind the scenes reality of making a painting. One of the major things I learned while working on this painting is that I am really not good at blending color when it comes to gouache. You can see me attempting to create a blend gradient on the backside of the character's hand. I labored over that for an embarrassingly long amount of time, and I still think it looks bad. I was like very happy that I knew I was sticking a butterfly on top of it, so it wasn't gonna like be a super vibrant and clear part of the finished painting. But it's like when I'm working digital, all that I have to do is grab my favorite little blendy brush and one beautiful swipe, and I've got myself a sexy little gradient. But here I do not. You can kind of see it on the areas where the character is meant to be kind of blushed or a little bit darker too. Is one thing that I have been also experimenting more with is using paint mixing rather than just using the color that comes out of the paint tube. This is something that comes up because I'm using these predetermined color palettes that I set for all of my paintings or all of my drawings through the month. And so in order to grab those colors from the palette, I have to recreate them in the paint that I have. But mixing paint is extremely challenging, and gouache is very unforgiving in that they say that it's not like this, but it is. You can see it in the painting. The color will dry either darker or lighter than the color appears wet due to the way that it's reflecting light. It's just like an unavoidable reality of, I don't know, physics, whatever. And so because of that, it is very difficult to remix a color that you've already mixed. And I'm embracing that. You can sort of see like the different tones going on in the green of the hair. It works. I'm okay with it. But when it comes to adding that layer of blush or darken or shadow, I'm not, like, I have to remix the skin color and then I have to change the shade, and trying to do that without actually knowing how it will dry was a little bit disorienting. So yeah, I think that those are like kind of my weak spots when it comes to where I'm at with gouache. I am quite happy with this painting, I would say. Overall, it kind of ranks in the middle for me. It's one of those things where the way I've been feeling lately is I will do my digital sketch. I will have my vision for the painting very clearly set out in my mind, and I will, transcribe it basically into gouache paint. And I'm getting to the point where I'll finish an illustration, I'll look at it, and I'll be like, well, I set out to do what I set out to do, and I did it, but I'm still not like super 100% happy with the outcome. And I use that feeling of dissatisfaction not to discourage me, not to be like, oh, I'm a failure, but to be like, okay, well, what am I going to do next time to not have a repeat of that feeling, even though I probably will continue to have that feeling for the rest of my career here and there. But yeah, so reflecting on the experience is an important part of my process and allows me to approach the next painting with new goals and new, techniques to explore, whatever it may be. Anyway, let me just touch on, there I am with my real camera. Let me just touch on what's going on here. I opted to fast forward rather than clip real time of me applying the colored pencil layer. It just like, as you can see, I hold my pencil with like a closed fist, and so I was blocking almost all of the detail of me actually applying the color. And so I was like, it doesn't really make sense for me to leave this real time. I've been pairing colored pencil with gouache a lot lately. I think it's a really nice way to add a little bit of texture to my otherwise quite flat gouache work. I don't use it as heavily in this one as I did in my last one, but I think like going forward, it'll be something that I do in most of my paintings just to give it like a little extra flair, As you saw at the beginning, the last multimedia technique that I'm going to implement is 3D. There's not really much for me to say about that. It's going to happen kind of fast towards the end of the video, so I'll talk about it now. All that I did was use some cardstock that I cut into a tiny little butterfly and did a little bit of colored pencil just to give it a little bit of detail. I had intended to leave it blank, but it just looked too plain. I knew that I had to do something, and if I could do it again, I would probably like change up my technique a bit, but at that point I had already been painting for 3.5 to 4 hours, and I really just wanted to see it with this 3D element that was supposed to be like the cherry on top of the illustration. And of course, here's me doing my prerequisite stare at the painting to make sure it's finished, because there's no one telling you to stop. It's just you and deciding where the end is. So here we are at the end. I want to thank you so much for watching me paint this piece. I hope that you learned something. I hope this hasn't been the most boring video you've ever watched. If you did make it all the way to the end, please go check out the other videos on my channel. I'm experimenting with a few different types of videos, so like the ones you like the most, you know, so I know what to make more of. Subscribe if you want to stick around, and you can also find me all over the internet. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Patreon, and all of those links are going to be in the comment box below. So enjoy the rest of your day, whatever time it may be, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.